Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Cooperative Extension Money Smart Week Twitter chat and Hangout on Air, sponsored by E-Extension. My name's Bob Birch. I'm going to be your moderator for this Hangout on Air, and I'd like to also welcome our Hangout on Air guests, Barb O'Neill from Rutgers University, Dr. Erik Tobe from Michigan State University, Dr. Erik Anderson from the University of Idaho, and we had planned to have Alejo Torres from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Unfortunately, lots of Money Smart Week things, or I should say fortunately, lots of Money Smart Week things going on in Chicago, so Alejo won't be able to join us today. You can also take part in this conversation on Twitter. Our Twitter moderators for the MSW chat hashtag are Dr. Elizabeth Kiss from Kansas State University and Dr. Susan Shockey from NIFA, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, part of the USDA. So let's get our video live here and get this hangout underway. So welcome again, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and ask you each just to introduce yourself for the video, and we'll start with Barb.
Hi, I'm Barbara Neale from Rutgers Cooperative Extension in New Jersey, and my title is Extension Specialist in Financial Resource Management. So I direct personal finance programs throughout the state of New Jersey and also work on some national projects too.
Go ahead, Erica. Introduce yourself to the folks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Erika Tobe, and I work with Michigan State University Extension. I'm an extension specialist with our financial and homeownership education team. And then I also have a partial appointment with our Department of Human Development and Family Studies, where I have an opportunity to teach personal finance class on campus as well. So thank you very much for having me today.
And Erik.
Yes, hi, I'm Erik Anderson. I'm a faculty member at the University of Idaho in the Department of Agricultural and Extension Education. I am working with the personal finance, the Financial Security for All community of practice in E-Extension, and I'm happy to participate in the event today.
Well, we're excited to hear our panel's thoughts on Money Smart Week and what it means to be money smart. I want to remind you as well that as you're watching the Hangout, please take part in the Twitter conversation. You can get involved in the conversation just by using the hashtag MSWChat. So, Barb, can you tell us a little bit about Money Smart Week? What is it and how this thing gets started?
Well, you know, Money Smart Week is like a lot of very successful programs. It kind of starts in one little corner of the United States and just mushrooms over time. So Erica did a search just a few minutes ago and found that it started in 2002. And I became involved with a local campaign in Northwest New Jersey in 2004, and we did that for a number of years. And now flash forward 13 years, and I think they're in the majority of the states. And if you go on their website, moneysmartweek.org, they have a calendar, and you can just click on the map of the U.S. and you'll be able to see events that are all around the country. So it's just a very successful program, started in Chicago by the folks at the Federal Reserve Bank there, and then just expanded first in kind of the central part of the United States and now pretty much across the whole country.
Well, there's a lot of things going on across the country, as Barb mentioned, and I know, Erica, there's some things going on in Michigan. Maybe you can tell us some of the things that you're involved with regarding Money Smart Week.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, in Michigan, we have a wonderful network. We were actually one of the first states to start Money Smart Week initiatives going on across the country. So we actually have 500 events for all of the partners that are a part of Money Smart Week in Michigan. Our largest initiative is in the Detroit area, in the southeast corner of the state. But we also have initiatives as well that have started up in other pockets, and actually some of our MSU extension educators are actually the leaders of those groups, which has really been a nice opportunity for us. So a lot of our extension staff are doing free education throughout the state, either providing free educational sessions around purchasing your first home or learning a little bit about money management, and really trying to provide good educational resources and tools for families. One of the things that we have going on at Michigan State, which is a new initiative that is happening, is called the Geocache for Campus or for College Cash program, and I know several states have started that as well. In Michigan, we have 18 campuses that are actually holding some type of initiative around this area, but it's a scavenger hunt for university students to be able to go across their campus, learn a little bit about money management. There's actually 7 themed posters, and they're all focused around issues related to college students. Things like understanding your student loans, or what do you do about credit card debt, understanding car loans. Is it a lemon, or is it something that's really going to be effective for them? At Michigan State, we're actually holding all of our posters in one location, so we're going to actually have students go to a financial resource fair from 6 to 8 p.m. on Thursday evening in room 300 Human Ecology Building. And there's going to be a resource fair where they can participate in the competition. They can also speak to different professionals and really talk about some of their financial issues with professionals in the community. And it's all going to be a very informal basis. The really nice thing about these competitions, too, is that in Michigan, we actually have a statewide scholarship. There's a chance for one student to win a $1,000 statewide scholarship that's been sponsored by the Financial Planning Association of Michigan. We also have a competition where the Michigan Department of Treasury, through the Michigan Education Trust, is actually giving away an iPad as well. And then in Michigan, we also have several wonderful prizes, even going as far as a signed MSU football by the head coach, Mark D'Antonio. So a really nice opportunity for students to have a little bit of fun and also learn a little bit about money management as well and speak to professionals. And of course, we're going to have food and refreshments, which is going to be a nice opportunity too for the students. So we have a lot of wonderful things going on across the state. I'm really excited to be a part.
So it looks like Erica's video may have locked up a little bit. Hopefully we'll have her back in the Hangout soon, and looks like things are actually catching up there. So I want to remind you that as we're having our conversation in this Hangout on air, the Twitter conversation is ongoing, and Erik Anderson is going to give us a little recap as that conversation happens so that you can stay in touch with what's happening on social media as we have the conversation here in the Hangout. So I think maybe Erik had touched on a few of the topics that are being discussed and tried to communicate on the college campuses in Michigan. But Barb, can you give us an idea of what do you think it means to be money smart?
You know, I think of money smart, that term, is very similar to being financially capable, and that's the term that's been thrown around a lot the last maybe 5 years or so, because it's not really just what you know about personal finance, which people have referred to as financial literacy, but it's also what you do with your money. You know, the wise decisions that you make, the mistakes and costly errors that you avoid. So it's just having the knowledge about personal finance, but then having that translate into financially responsible behaviors, like paying your bills on time, trying to avoid minimum payments on credit cards, getting some money started in an investment program for retirement. Somebody just sent me a link this morning to an article in USA Today that was reporting on the latest retirement confidence survey, and they found out that almost 1/3 of Americans have less than $1,000 saved for retirement. So that's a huge problem that we're going to have in this country when people are unprepared. So people who are money smart are taking positive action to improve their financial well-being.
Erica, anything that you'd like to add to that about what it means to be money smart?
Yeah, you know, I think it really is a philosophy and understanding that sometimes it is just those small steps to be able to start to achieve. And you may not get to your end goal right away, but really understanding that it's going to take time. Part of what I think too in being money smart is knowing who to go to, and I know that's another question that we have as well, but understanding who you can trust, who are the professionals that you need to speak with, because sometimes you don't need to have all the answers, but you at least have to have the tools in front of you to be able to rely on and be able to utilize when you need them. And you know, obviously, in Michigan, we talk a lot about having 4 components. Needing to understand your goals, needing to understand your spending plan, where your financial situation is at, understanding your credit and debt, and then also building savings and investing for the future. And that's really kind of the core components that we talk about. But again, I think too is really finding out who you need to go to for help can be beneficial.
So Barb, how do I tell if I'm money smart? Maybe I think I'm money smart, but how do I tell if I really am?
Well, you know, that I kind of laugh because I guess the opposite of money smart is money dumb, and none of us want to admit to being that. I think there's a lot of tools out there. We have a quiz on our website at Rutgers Cooperative Extension. It's called the Financial Fitness Quiz. We've had it up for over a decade. Literally tens of thousands of people have taken this quiz, and it's 20 questions, and it's really, again, asking you about your practices, not your knowledge. So that particular instrument is out there. People can, you know, just take that. I think our tweeters are probably going to put the link out for that. And it's a place to start. Also, the FINRA Investor Education Foundation has a knowledge quiz, 5 questions that they use as part of their assessment of people's financial capability, and that's another tool. But I think, you know, to really get down to brass tacks, Bob, the biggest way that you'll kind of know if you're money smart is if you're making progress in your finances. If you're able to pay your bills each month and you're running at least flat cash flow, if not positive cash flow, so you're earning more than you spend. If you're hacking away at balances on credit cards, or even better, don't have any balances on credit cards. If you're making progress in saving for retirement, you know, it's all about the numbers. You're going to see your financial capability or your money smartness, if you will, in the numbers, in the progress that you're making, and probably also the emotions that you feel about money. You're probably going to be a whole lot less stressed out if you're money smart versus somebody who is kind of living on the financial edge, paycheck to paycheck, and not having a lot of money set aside for emergencies.
Erica, you have things to add or comments that you want to make on what Barb said?
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention of just one other tool. At Michigan State a couple years ago, we developed in partnership with an economist here on campus a financial health index survey. And it's a pretty in-depth tool. It does take a little bit of work to put the information in, so it's not as succinct as the tool that Barb mentioned. But you really have to have your checkbook register or your bank account information in front of you. But it really gives you a good assessment of where you stand with your financial situation once you're done. You can actually go to mimoneyhealth.org, and it's the Financial Health Index Survey. And it's a pretty comprehensive, again, tool to really kind of help you understand where your financial situation is at. But I think Barb's exactly right. You know, how you're feeling, how secure you're feeling with your financial situation is going to give you an inkling as far as if you're starting to go in the right direction, the positive direction.
So Eric, we asked this question on the Twitter stream, and some of those tweets are coming back in. What are people saying on Twitter about what it means to be money smart?
Okay, let me see. I've been trying to track the action on the Twitter chat is picking up. So what it means to be money smart, Jane Makes Sense says money smart means setting goals, tracking expenses, following a plan, and then reaching those goals. And Jerry Butchko, who's joined us, said that being money smart is being financially capable, developing your financial knowledge, and putting that knowledge into action. We also
Thanks.
have some responses to the question about what are the benefits of some of the benefits of being money smart, and some of the comments relate to the ability to help relieve debt, living with little or no debt. That again came from Jane Makes Sense. And Julie Moberg suggested working on 2 or 3 financial goals at a time makes it more doable and not an overwhelming task. So some good advice coming from the Twitter participants.
Thanks, Eric. So, Erica, we heard some of that that's being shared on Twitter about what are the benefits of being money smart. What are some of the benefits that you'd like to point out?
You know, I think one of the biggest benefits that you can see is just being able to reduce stress. And I see that somebody mentioned that, and I can't find who mentioned that right now. But, you know, anytime that you can be more in charge with your financial situation, you are going to have less stress. You're going to have more time. If you're more organized, you're going to feel more ready to tackle the challenges. If you have an emergency fund, you're able to deal with unexpected expenses. So I think stress management is a huge benefit. If you feel like you're more financially capable, you're more financially able to handle things that come your way. And, you know, that's one of life's greatest things. You know, we can't always predict what's going to happen. Sometimes this stuff is unpredictable. And so any time that you can feel more prepared, that's going to be a better benefit.
Barb, what about you? Are some of the benefits that were mentioned on Twitter resonating with you?
Oh, absolutely. Knowledge is power, and we all want to feel empowered about our finances. I mean, we want to have a secure financial future. So the things that we learn often translate into things that we do. There are research theories that support that when people kind of have their consciousness raised about an issue, they're more likely to say, wow, maybe there's a better way to manage my finances. And then when you kind of get into that next stage of change where you're kind of contemplating a change, then you might move to the next stage where you prepare to make that change. So you realize that you have an opportunity maybe at your workplace to contribute to a 401k or other retirement plan. So then you start seeking out information about that plan. You know, how do you enroll? What kind of paperwork do you have to fill out? What are the choices? And then eventually you take that action and hopefully maintain it over a period of time. So I think it all kind of boils down to knowledge, and I think that's why the focus on so many of these Money Smart Week events is providing information, unbiased information, I should mention, because I think everybody who's a partner with Money Smart Week across the country is there for the educational purpose and not to promote any product or service necessarily. So it's all about getting that base of information that can help you achieve your financial dreams.
You know, Barb, you bring up unbiased information, and it's a question that I've been thinking about. There's a lot, when we talk about money issues and personal finance issues, it's sort of like food and nutrition issues. There's a ton of information out there. Do you have some tips for people in terms of how they might go about, you know, sifting out and filtering out what things they really should be listening to with all the talking heads on TV and radio talk shows and blogs and everything else that's out there?
Well, I mean, let's talk about online content for a minute. I mean, one thing that you can do, obviously, is look at the last 3 letters of a website. So is it a .com where you've got some kind of commercial interest versus a .edu that many of us on this Hangout, of course, have, where we're involved with an educational institution, or a .org, which might be a nonprofit, or a .gov, which, of course, would be the government agencies. So I think, you know, just knowing the source of the information, first of all, and particularly on social media, finding out who are the people behind the Twitter handle, because sometimes it's not obvious. I mean, even my Twitter handle is Money Talk 1, so you kind of have to do a little digging to realize that it's a professor at Rutgers University that's Money Talk 1. So just doing a little bit of due diligence, finding out who the sources of information are. comparing opinions. The Twitter chats are great. There's a lot of regularly scheduled Twitter chats in personal finance. You know, Cooperative Extension does them periodically, but there are some that go on every week, and just kind of sorting out, you know, who the people are that are providing the information, and then checking it out and verifying it to make sure that, you know, maybe several people are saying the same thing. Then you have a little bit more confidence that the information is valid.
Erica, you have thoughts on this idea of filtering out the storm of personal finance information out there? Erica, are you hearing me okay? Okay, we might have lost Erica for a little bit here. So we'll move on with our conversation with Dr. Barb O'Neil and Dr. Erik Anderson here with us in this live Google Hangout on air, brought to you by E-Extension Personal Finance. This is for Money Smart Week, and there's a Twitter chat going on as well. I want to remind you of that. You can connect to that on Twitter using the hashtag MSWChat. So Barb, you mentioned, I think, before that, you know, it's not just knowing the right thing to do with your money, but actually doing it. So what are some examples of what you might call, what actions might be, you know, quote unquote, money smart?
Well, I think the first thing is probably to figure out what your goals are. And it doesn't really, it's not rocket science. It's figuring out a cost, and it might involve going online or checking prices of items and things, and figuring out the dollar cost and then the time deadline. So maybe you want something that costs $5,000 in 2 years. So you do the math, figure out, okay, that's $2,500 a year. And you start with the goal, because then you want to put that in your spending plan, otherwise known as a budget, and make that item kind of a fixed expense, just like you would have, you know, a rent or mortgage payment or a car loan payment. You make that savings deposit amount to reach that goal a kind of a fixed expense, and put that into your spending plan. So it's kind of backing it up from the beginning. You're figuring out what you want, and then having a plan of action to achieve it, and then periodically checking progress points. You know, are you 25% away, 25% towards your goal? You know, kind of see if you're 25% into your savings amount as well. Just a whole lot of tools like that would be really helpful for people.
Thanks, Barb. And I think we have Erica back.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. So
That's okay, but we were just talking, Erica, about examples of actions that we might consider money smart. Do you have any thoughts or examples that you want to share?
I think it sounds like, you know, just taking small action is a little bit what Barb was talking about. I mean, anytime you're very intentional and deliberate with some of the choices that you're starting to make regarding your financial situation is going to be a good thing. I think identifying your goals, and this may be what Barb said. I apologize, I didn't hear what she was saying there collectively, but, you know, identifying your goals, even if it's just a small goal, starting to, you know, put a plan in place is going to be something that's going to be a benefit. I think starting early. That's one of the big things with my students that I talk about. They have the opportunity where time is on their side. And if they start saving now versus if they wait just a few years, all that lost momentum, all that lost opportunity for the compounding is really huge. So an opportunity to start as soon as you can, even if it's a very small amount, that really does add up over time, and it can really benefit, especially when you're thinking about retirement. I go back to what Barb said about, you know, people not having more than $1,000. That is a huge concern, and as we kind of think about this over the long haul, the effect that that could have down the road, you know, as employers are changing the way that they're helping to provide retirement, and it's really based on the individual. And so, you know, anything that you can do to start to put your plan in place, you know, little by little can really pay off in the long run.
So we've posed this question to our folks having the conversation on Twitter as well, and I see some of those tweets have been coming in. Erik, what are people saying on Twitter about these smart money actions?
We received several responses to that. That's the third question in our group of questions, and so here are some examples. My Money Indy mentioned increasing the funds that go automatically into their retirement account, which is a pretty painless way to help build savings. Let's see, Julie Moberg mentioned forming a budget for her household that helps keep her on track, and I know this, some of those basic approaches, such as budgeting, were mentioned. Jerry Butchko talked about building up his emergency fund reserves, and in particular in preparation to help him explore and pursue new career goals. And then finally we got a tweet from America Saves, and they mentioned building a savings plan that was right for them, right, based on their current money habits and the goals that they wanted to reach. So real good good strategies that people have used.
Thanks, Erik, and thanks to everybody who's contributing to that conversation on Twitter. Again, the hashtag is MSWChat. One of the tweets that I saw, Erik, too, was one from Julie Moberg about keeping the checkbook up to date after using a debit card, keeping spending in line. So I wanted to ask Barb's reaction to that. That's something that I have to admit I struggle with myself. It's so easy with electronic payment these days to actually keep track of that stuff. So is that something, maybe I'm in the minority, or me and Julie are in the minority, but is that something that people have a hard time with, Barb?
Yeah, I think so, because the act of swiping isn't the same time as the act of recording. I personally don't have that problem. I don't use a debit card, so when you write a check, kind of old school, it goes right into the register, and I have it subtracted, so it's not a big issue. But I think it can be for a lot of people, and I guess it becomes a real problem if your balance is pretty low. I mean, I think if you have a large enough balance, you're not going to run the risk of having any penalties or fees or anything like that. You're just going to have disorganized records. But if you're kind of close to the limits for what you need in your account before you either go into overdraft status or you go below some amount where fees are charged, then you need to be really careful about that.
So it's time for the flip side. So, Barb, you use the term money dumb. I'm gonna shy away from that, and just ask you guys, what are some examples of actions that maybe aren't so money smart? And maybe I'll let Erica start with that one.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of went back to my own childhood growing up, and I always say sometimes the best money managers are the ones that have learned their lessons down the road. And I remember one time in college where I decided to go on a trip with my friends. I didn't budget accordingly. I didn't plan for it, and when I got back, I didn't have my rent for the month, and I had to, call my dad and make that call, and it was probably one of the scariest calls I've ever had to make as a part of it. So I kind of go back to that and think about not planning ahead, not budgeting, not having those pieces in place, not having an emergency fund. At that time, I was paycheck to paycheck. I was paying for school. I had a lot of things on my plate, and I was very impulsive. And so I think, some of those criteria you learn from, and definitely can see how they can really make an effect on you. So anything that you can do, living with the moment, I think sometimes can be a challenge. Sometimes we're in such a instant gratification society that we don't always think about the consequences of the costs it may have. So that, I think, is another issue as well. So anytime you can plan ahead, really build that emergency fund is going to be key. But really, people who don't do that, they're going to pay more. They're going to spend more time trying to figure out, have more stress, and unfortunately not have that money smart, savvy life that they're really trying to reach.
Barb, are there examples that come to mind for you about actions that aren't so money smart?
You know, it's funny. I think of the NIFA website, the Spendster, where people do their confessionals. I think we almost could have like a confessional here for your money smart and your money blooper ideas. I'll share something from my life. One thing that I did do that was pretty money smart was I joined the 403B plan here at Rutgers University, our tax-deferred retirement savings plan. So that was a smart thing to do, and I did that in my early 30s. And when I got my last statement just last month for the first quarter of 2015, I reached the $1 million mark. So that's pretty cool. I'm kind of excited about that. So that's the good news. But the bad news, the blooper, if you will, is that I actually could have started saving 9 years earlier. In my mid-20s, I started my job at Rutgers when I was 25 years old. I could have started in that account the first day on the job. And if I had done that, not only would I have had $1 million on my last statement, I probably would have had $2 million. So by skipping 9 years of early savings in my, my 20s, that whole decade from, let's say, 25 to 34, I gave up the opportunity now to have another $1 million. So I tell that story to my students at Rutgers because it wasn't like I wasn't saving at all during my 20s and 30s, but I guess I was just thinking I was falling into the pattern that many people fall into where you think house. So you do all your savings for your house, and you get the house first, and then you think about retirement. And I think you need to do both. You need to do everything. You need to have some money going for the down payment on a house if that's what you want, but also get that retirement savings in early. So I tell that story to my students because they have that opportunity. Kind of what Erica was saying, that students have the benefit of 45 years. I tell my students 45 years because they're 22. 67 is full retirement age right now. It could be higher by the time they get to it, but a 45-year period of time. So they have time on their side. And then the other smart thing that I did was invest in human capital. And I wasn't in my 20s. I was a little bit older when I went back and got my my advanced degree, and that has paid off in income earnings and that. And I tell my students that they have that. So they have two things really going for them as a college graduate. They'll have time on their side, 45 years of compound interest, and then they'll have their human capital, all the skills and knowledge that they got through their degree program. And then when they take my personal finance class, they're also money smart. So they actually have three things going for them that are important. So again, knowledge is power, and just taking, anybody that's listening that has the opportunity either themselves or as a parent or grandparent to influence a young person, get them started early, because that first decade of savings in your 20s is going to have a tremendous impact on your life in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, or longer if you live to 100 or whatever. So it's important.
Yeah, I'm going to give Barb a little plug here for investing for your future curriculum. There's a great chart on that e-extension website talking about the time value of money, and if you wait 10 years, what happens? And I show that to my students every semester so that they can see just that impact of that compounding and that delayed loss. So that is, a great resource at eextension.org within the Investing for Your Future curriculum.
So Eric, we sort of have some good examples on Twitter, I see, and a little bit of the confessional that Barb was talking about too. So,
right.
Go ahead.
There have been a few brave souls out there who have offered up some of their experiences, and so I've got a few here we can share. So Jane McBee, Jane Makes Sense, mentions the least money smart thing she has done had to do with a car purchase, and she admits that bigger is not always better when it comes to vehicles. Cheryl WI, and maybe that stands for Wisconsin. Cheryl 888888 is the handle. Says that she has cashed a paycheck for someone else that bounced, unfortunately, and so sometimes trying to do something to help somebody else may come back the wrong way. Several mentioned about buyer's remorse. Jerry Butchko talked about buying, in particular, technology, toys, and sometimes we make purchases without doing enough research up front. So buying things on the spur of the moment, and sort of that impulse spending. There were several comments about that. And America Saves said impulse spending is definitely their Achilles heel, and I think the temptation is there for all of us.
Thanks, Eric. So I want to get Barb and Erica's reaction to some of those. Some of those resonated really with me. The impulse buying. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on how we can control that internal impulse a little bit. And then also the story about cashing a check for someone, trying to help somebody out and maybe putting yourself at financial risk. So, Erica, what are your thoughts on at least those two comments that were made?
Yeah, impulse buying, that's huge. I mean, I think, again, it goes back to that instant gratification society. We have to have everything at our fingertips when we see it. We're marketed to it. And so I think, part of that is goal setting. It goes back to that basic concept of what are your goals. And if you have your goals, you're more apt to stick to your goals and be able to see a little bit past those impulse purchases. And I'm not saying that you never make those impulse purchases. I mean, obviously, you have to live your life and you have to be happy with your life. But you definitely can control those impulses a little bit and make them a little bit more manageable. I think that's really important. And so it really goes back to those basic steps, those thinking about your goals, identifying what your goals are, and really being able to stick to it. Because if you develop goals, and in Michigan we talk a lot about SMART goals, so making them very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, where you want to make sure that you're able to stick to it a little bit better. So especially with impulse buying, I think that's huge and definitely something that you want to think about.
Barb, can you share some of your thoughts about this question of sort of helping people out? That we had the story about cashing a check. I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old not at home anymore, and so there's helping them out. There might be family loans. What are your thoughts on how we deal with some of those kind of demands?
Well, I think, as Erik has said, you want to help people that you love, so there's that natural tendency to do that. But I think you kind of have to put some boundaries on it and set some policies for yourself that, if it's a policy and you're sticking with it, it's not personal to any one person. It's just your policy of either how much you would be willing to lend, and of course make it clear that it's a loan versus a gift. I mean, that's a key thing too. Many things start out as loans and then end up not being paid and eventually turn into gifts, I guess. Maybe unintended gifts is more like it. So kind of putting some parameters on it. I teach my students the pitfalls of co-signing loans. And I actually have a really cute whiteboard video that I show my students that kind of, they kind of like it, enjoy it, and really kind of makes the point of the pitfalls of kind of risking your own money for somebody else. So just being aware of those things. And, another thing as far as the impulse buying goes is trying to put as much automation into your savings plan as you can. That old saying, pay yourself first, is really important, trying to make savings a priority, much like a house payment or a rent payment or a car loan payment would be. But the automation is key, because then you're kind of restricting your income. You're taking the savings right off the top, having it go into some sort of savings plan or a credit union account or something. That's really important because if you kind of wait until the end of the month and say, okay, well, I'll save whatever's left over, of course, there's never anything left over. And it's really a huge problem.
So Money Smart Week is all about trying to get this information out there and hopefully get people started becoming money smart. How do they get started, Barb? Where do people go to start getting money smart?
Okay, well, it's certainly for this week, to find out the local events that would be in their community, I would go to moneysmartweek.org and find those local events, because obviously they're taking place between now and Saturday, because Money Smart Week is the 18th to 25th. So that would be a good place to start. But then on an ongoing basis, Erica mentioned our Investing for Your Future course in Cooperative Extension. If investing is the area that you want to explore and get a little bit more money smart about, we have a personal finance webpage in eExtension. It's just extension.org/personal finance, and you'll find all of our resources from across the country on personal finance topics. Another good resource is mymoney.gov, where all the federal agencies that have anything to do with personal finance have kind of gotten together and pooled all their resources on one website. So you've got Securities and Exchange Commission, Federal Reserve, CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and lots of other agencies that have their information all in one place. So there's lots of good information out there, and I advise people, for this week and going forward, do one thing a day to make financial progress, and that could be as little as emptying change into a jar. Just one positive action, and then learn one new thing about personal finance. And that could just be visiting a website, following a personal finance Twitter chat, reading an article in your local newspaper. If you can do one thing to move yourself forward and learn one new thing that broadens your information base about personal finance, that's doing a lot. That's moving you forward. And then maybe on the weekend, you would tackle a larger task. One of the things I do when I sign off on Twitter every Friday afternoon when I'm closing down my computer for the weekend is I put out a message: do one thing this weekend for your personal finances. And it might be calculating your net worth, tracking your cash flow, requesting your credit report, reconciling your checkbook, because those things take a little bit more time than we typically have in a busy workday. So if you can do, one quick thing every weekday, one maybe longer thing on the weekend, and then learn one thing every day about personal finance, that's huge. That's going to make you money smart.
Erica, any other resources to add to get people started?
Yeah, I think the internet has a wealth of information, and I think one of the things you really just want to, and Barb mentioned this a little bit, is just what lens is this coming from? So who's reporting the information? There is some wonderful resources out there that are government information that you definitely want to tap into. Barb mentioned mymoney.gov. One of the new agencies is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and they have some great resources on owning a home now. They have great resources on student loans. So there's a variety of information out there as well for that. You can go to your local financial institution. Definitely, a lot, especially credit unions, but banks are also doing a lot of education as well. So looking at what locally you have at your disposal. Libraries are starting to do a lot more education, and you'll see a lot of libraries that are offering sessions during Money Smart Week as well. So that's some really good sources that you can tap into. But going to eextension.org is a great resource. They have the Ask the Expert function, so if you have a money-related question, you can go on there and within a very quick time period be able to get a response from an educator, a professional, across the country. And so that's a great resource. All of that information is unbiased and available as well. Barb mentioned her Investing for Your Future. FINRA also has a smart investing website, and they have some really good resources if you want to learn a little bit more about investing education. And then the National Endowment for Financial Education also has some really good resources and tools. and they have a clearinghouse as well within their Smart About Money website.
And they have that spinster thing, and you really got to check out those spinster videos. There's one where somebody is panning around their shoe closet, and I swear this woman probably has about 200 pairs of shoes, and then at the end she admits that she's a spinster. It's very cute.
Erik, what are people mentioning on Twitter in terms of where to go to get money smart?
Well, I think Erica and Barb have covered most of them, but I just will add in a couple other comments that people have shared, and I think these may have already been alluded to as well. There are state personal finance specialists like Barb and Erica across the country, and so each state may have their own resource through their state extension system, and certainly people should contact their local county extension offices to look for information there as well. And Cheryl Cheryl 888888 mentioned taking a course, and I think that could be something online, as was mentioned. Lots of materials are available through e-extension, through other state extension systems, through a variety of sources. So do things virtually, but you can also take a course in person, locally, through community college or some other educational institution. So lots of different ways, avenues are available out there.
Thanks, Erik. And I just want to remind you that if you want to add to that conversation that's going on Twitter, just go on Twitter and look for the hashtag MSWChat. Erica, let's talk a little bit about role models. Barb and I have talked a little bit about this on a previous Hangout on air during the America Saves Challenge about who the role models are for good money habits. Who do you think people should look to as role models for children and also for adults, or for those of us who might be watching this and not be so money smart or not feel so money smart?
Well, you know, I think one of the role models that, especially when we look at kids, have is their parents. And good or bad, you learn from your experiences from your parents. It may not be an actual communicated conversation that's happened. It may just be learning by association or viewing practices that are happening. So parents are role models, and you know, I think that's one of the common misconceptions, is that they're not the teachers of financial education, but actually that's our primary teachers, really at a young age. And so parents are role models, and in trying to be able to provide education to their kids that way is definite. You know, there's a cartoon I used to show, and it was two parents talking, and they said, okay, we talked about the facts of life, now when are we going to start talking about credit? Because a lot of times we forget to have that conversation with our kids, and that really is a role model that you can have. And I know a lot of my college students, when they submit their papers, you know, they've had a conversation with their parents about it, which is kind of neat to see. You know, also I think other role models that you can have, definitely financial professionals. If there's somebody that you trust, that you vetted, that can be a source of information too. I think one of the things that you always want to keep in mind is you're trying to collect as much information as you can, but that not one source of information is going to be the end-all be-all. And really try to understand where that information is coming from, what that person's perspective might be. You know, are you paying them to provide you this advice, or is it kind of a free service as a part of it? But make sure you really kind of understand the lens that they're communicating that to. So that can be a role model that people can have as well. You know, I do know people do go to their libraries for sources of information, and so that could be something. Your cooperative extension educator in your community could be a role model. I know our staff across the state do a lot of financial education sessions, and will work with people to be able to help them reach their financial goals. So that's also a resource as well. So, you know, there's a breadth of information out there, and there's a lot of people that can be role models. And really trying to understand kind of who they are, what their lens is, that they're trying to provide that information to you, so that you make sure that you're getting good consumer information, I think is important. Because with the age of the internet, there's so much information out there that people have access to, and so you do have to filter it a little bit to make sure that you truly have the information that you're trying to get.
Barb, if I remember a conversation right from a few months ago, your parents were pretty instrumental in your money habits.
Mm-hmm.
What about people who might not have that from their parents or immediate family?
Well, then it's got to be somewhere else, and it could be a teacher, as Erica said. It could be even somebody who is profiled online. You think about all the videos now that go viral, and there must be producers that at all the television networks now that are following the counts on various YouTube videos, and when they reach a certain critical mass, then it's worthy of national news, perhaps. So I think powerful stories can really help people be money smart. It doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of facts and statistics and even a lot of guidelines necessarily, but one person's powerful story about how they changed their life. And I was on a Twitter chat about 2 weeks ago, and it was somebody who had been indebted as a young adult and really racked up a big debt balance and then was able to turn that around. And those kind of stories can be really motivational because people want to see people like them. You know, it's one thing to have some celebrity that has $1 million income or something, but a real person who has turned their life around can be really powerful. Or they don't necessarily even have to have a comeback story. It could just be somebody who has a really positive story, somebody who saved money over 30 years and became a millionaire, which typically is how it happens. You know, we tend to get a lot of news coverage on the people who become wealthy very quickly and at a young age, but the reality is the people who accumulate wealth, for the most part, do it kind of slow and steady. They start investing in their 20s and they continue it throughout their life. So having those success stories is really powerful.
Well, since you bring it up about saving and becoming a millionaire, Barb, I have to share this tweet. I'll jump on Eric's toes a little bit, and Lauren Hale, says wow about your comments about your saving $1 million. So if anybody's looking, maybe Dr. Barbara O'Neal would be one place to find a role model.
But I could have been a better role model, you know.
Erik, is anything else popping up on this question of role models on Twitter?
I think most of the ideas have been covered. There, Jane McBee, Jane Makes Sense, puts a plug in also for listening to your mother or your parents as a good source for financial information. I think that the role of family and family members has been discussed. And then our own Susan Shockey with USDA mentions the cooperative extension system of extension educators, and I would second that opinion. We have great role models across the country within Extension who provide, as was mentioned, unbiased information to help consumers and other educators.
Our next question that we shared on Twitter was about a favorite personal finance website to get money smart. I know that we've mentioned a lot of websites today, Erica and Barb. So maybe if we could just, focus on one or two to point people in the right direction, and then we'll go to Erik and see if what other people are mentioning as well. So Barb, let's start with you. What do you think about a favorite personal finance website?
Well, we mentioned quite a few before, the e-extension personal finance and the mymoney.gov, but one thing that is really powerful to me that I recommend a lot is the 1% additional savings calculator, and it's actually a website off of the New York Times, believe it or not, and you just plug in your numbers and you see what 1% more of your income being saved over a period of time would translate into dollars. So it's pretty powerful. There's also been some research that suggests that when people see themselves at an older age, that they are more likely to save, because it's not like just thinking about yourself as being 80 years old. You can actually visibly see yourself as being 80 years old. So there's a website that deals with that as well. There's some really creative things online, and they can be really helpful to get money smart.
Erica, what about you? Are there a couple of websites, one or two, that you'd like to mention?
I would just really like to go back. I think that the Ask the Expert function in the extension.org is really nice, and just an opportunity for people to get their questions answered, especially if it's something that they're not sure who else to go to. So I think that would be something that you can definitely get, and it is a quick response to be able to get that. I really like some of the government websites. I think the CFPB is really putting out some wonderful resource, consumerfinance.gov. There's also new materials coming out at different target markets, which is really, really nice. I do like the Smart Investing from FINRA. I think that's a great resource to be able to give a nice overview of investing topics if someone's just new and getting into the investing market. So I think that's another really nice resource as well. And then I'm going to put a little plug in for our Michigan website. It's mimoneyhealth.org, and we're really trying hard to beef that website up and really make it a better, efficient site for people to use as well.
Erik, are there been any websites mentioned on Twitter that maybe we haven't talked about already?
Yeah, there have been a couple. Following along what Erica was saying about the Michigan website, there's one that's shared from Utah, Amanda Christensen at FamFinePro. It's called livewellutah.org, an online resource for personal finance. So there are state sites, but there are also several other government sites. There's a FTC site, consumer.ftc.gov, which has consumer information. And I think the others, and one finally is a commercial site, bankrate.com, which I know provides a lot of financial details. I know I've consulted that for looking at current interest rates in the marketplace myself.
Well, thanks, Erik. I think we're just about out of time. We've got a few minutes left, so I want to go to our panel and ask for any final money smart tips. Erica, what do you want to leave people with from our conversation today?
I think, and this is probably stealing Barb's a little bit, but I think, anything you can do that's small is going to be a better benefit in the long run. So, sometimes when we say we're going to make changes and we try to go drastic. We commonly do this if you're trying to lose weight, and all of a sudden you go on a diet for a week and then it falls apart after a week. And I think anything with trying to be money smart is incremental changes are very nice. And sometimes it's the small steps that really kind of help you achieve the greatest results. And so, really trying to start out, look at your goals, start identifying what are some very achievable things that you can do, and something that's going to be very easy to implement in your plan, I think, is really helpful. So that would be my first recommendation. The second recommendation is start saving as soon as possible. Really kind of look at that time value of money, looking at compounding, really understanding how, the better benefit of compounding, and if you start saving now versus waiting, when you feel like you may have more money available for that purpose, there's that loss of growth potential. So really start saving as soon as you possibly can, even if it's just a small incremental amount.
How about you, Barb? What tips do we have for people, the final tips to become money smart?
Well, one resource that I thought about that we haven't shared yet is powerpay.org, and that was developed by our Utah Extension colleagues, and it's a great resource for people who are trying to dig out of debt and to try to do it as quickly as possible to save time and interest. So I wanted to get that on the radar screen as well. But I think as far as the tip, I'd go back to what I said before. If you can just every day learn something new about personal finance that kind of increases your awareness of a topic, whether it's investing or credit or new laws that are coming down the pike with taxes, for example. If you learn one new thing every day, that's going to get you money smart. And if you can do one thing, small thing every day positive, and then maybe a little bit more on the weekends when you have a little bit more time, that's going to move you forward quite a bit. And it's on a scale that most people can do. You know, we don't necessarily have lots and lots of time to devote for our finances, but a couple small things every day, and you'll be on the path to financial security.
Thanks, Barb. And Erik, what were some of the final thoughts from our conversation on Twitter?
The Twitter participants, I think, shared some similar sentiments, making the small actions, packing your own lunch, making your own coffee at home can help you save and build towards saving. And just some other suggestions related to people's individual goals, like learning more about estate planning, just ideas to sort of take care of your own resources over the long term.
Thanks, Erik, and thanks to the whole panel, Dr. Barbara O'Neil from Rutgers University, Dr. Erik Tobe from Michigan State University, and Dr. Erik Anderson, keeping us up to date on the social media from the University of Idaho. Thanks so much to Susan Shockey and Elizabeth Kiss, who are Twitter moderators, and everybody who contributed to the Twitter conversation. You can keep going with that conversation just using that hashtag MSWChat. If you missed part of this broadcast and you want to see what you missed, check it out on our YouTube page. You can find that by going to youtube.com and searching Extension Personal Finance. I'm Bob Birch from North Dakota State University in the Network Literacy Community of Practice. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you join us again for our next Twitter chat and Hangout from Extension Personal Finance. Thanks again.